Hello everyone. Today I would like to try to do something different. So far I've been reading one article and just giving you my commentary on it. Today I'd like to read several articles and be more brief about them, just basically introduce an issue and give you my short analysis on what's going on. The first article is coming from cyberscoop.com. CISA doesn't know how many US federal agencies use firewalls to fend off malicious traffic. This is incredibly embarrassing, so let's read about this. The Department of Homeland Security's top cybersecurity agency doesn't know how many agencies are segmenting their networks from unwanted outside traffic, a basic security practice according to a letter recently sent to the office of Senator Ron Wyden by the agency. The agency provided the answers in response to a February inquiry from Wyden's office following a heated Senate Intelligence Committee hearing about the breach of the federal contractor SolarWinds. The suspected Russian espionage campaign used a vulnerability in SolarWinds and other software to infiltrate the systems of at least 9 federal agencies and about 100 private companies. This is incredibly embarrassing because the true scope of this attack is still unknown, but we know that at least 9 federal agencies and 100 private companies have been affected by this attack. It could have been the Russian government behind this, it could have been some rogue Russian hackers. It doesn't necessarily mean that these hackers have any ties to the government, but it very well could, but the attribution is very difficult. And most of the time, and this is the case in the SolarWinds attack, is that federal officers, they are not really providing clear evidence of their attribution. They are just saying, well, this is the Russians, this is the Koreans, you just have to take our word for it. But I wouldn't take their word for it. I'm not saying it's not Russians. It could be, it very well could be Russians, it could be anybody. But the point is that this attack was most likely preventable. So this is embarrassing to the cybersecurity defense strategy in the United States. And you're saying, well, this is only affecting the United States, I have nothing to worry about. Well, this is most likely going to be the case in your country too, wherever you are, because there is a lack of a chain of command or sort of synchronization of cybersecurity strategies among different federal or your national government agencies, because it doesn't just affect agencies that are military or intelligence agencies. This is affecting like health sectors, some public work sectors, Department of Transportation, whatever kind of departments you could have in your own country. And it can have drastic ramifications across that can ripple across the nation. And we've seen this with the Colonial Pipeline attack, which I think was only a small fraction of the damage that is possible with these kinds of attacks. And the fact that they don't even know how much actually, how much of the government was actually affected, or how many agencies were affected, is pretty scary because they could have been everywhere. But it's easy to blame the hackers, but they had probably a very easy job breaching these their security parameters, because apparently they don't even know how many of them had firewalls, which, I mean, that's like, how can you even exist in 2021 when the ransomware attacks just skyrocketed through the roof throughout the pandemic? And it's increasingly more profitable for these ransomware attack groups to just make money off of all of these companies, and even high-profile targets like the Colonial Pipeline or federal agencies. This is crazy, and I'm not sure how fast these people are moving. Maybe they're able to fix this pretty soon, but I'm pretty doubtful. I think that we're still going to be able to see more and more of these breaches, whether it's cyber espionage or ransomware attacks, or anything that is just wanting to disrupt the infrastructure, the power grid, or any other organization, stock market, financial markets, money markets, whatever. All of that can be disrupted by malware today. And the fact that we are not taking this cybersecurity seriously, I think it's telling. And I'm pretty worried that the only way we are going to learn from this is if we actually suffer from some kind of cyber pandemic or cyber Armageddon or cyber Pearl Harbor, some sort of an attack that causes severe physical real-world damages, like extreme shortages in logistics, in whatever products, even food or water or medical supplies, that's going to cause a lot of people to suffer or even die. There could be some attacks that disrupt some sort of dangerous materials that leak into, like chemicals leaking into the environment, poisoning waters, poisoning soil, and that could cause some sort of food shortages again, or just, you know, disrupting some power plants and taking off the electricity for businesses and millions of households at once. You know, people have been dying throughout the Texas power outage, and that was not even that serious as it could have been. You know, there's always a possibility for these outages to be much more serious, for the damage to be much harder to mitigate and repair. And I'm worried about this because people are going to suffer. It's going to reflect bad on the stock market, and it's definitely going to be abused by everybody that's in power to say that, oh, we need to take all of these measures to prevent such attacks from happening. And like with everything else, that's gonna mean that they're gonna try to encroach our civil rights, freedoms, you know, liberties that we have, trying to say something maybe about cryptocurrencies, because a lot of these ransomware attacks are using Bitcoin and Monero even. And the thing is that they are just blaming all cryptocurrencies, saying that they are all anonymous and they are untraceable, which is completely untrue. But you see these headlines in the news articles. But recently I've actually seen even like MSNBC, or I don't know, some of the CBC's news outlets, they've been covering Monero, saying that Monero is becoming more and more popular. I think Financial Times and Ars Technica also covered Monero, which are also big publications. So Monero is definitely gaining traction when it comes to dark markets. But the problem is that Monero is only mentioned in the media when it comes to dark markets, or black markets, I should say. I'm, you know, confusing darknet with the dark markets. There have been plenty of people saying that we should, you know, like ban something like Monero, or maybe even other cryptocurrencies completely, like ban owning that. So if you try to like switch, you know, from Monero to fiat, that should be illegal. And I think that those will be dangerous times, and I think they are coming. But let's switch to another article from Cyberscoop as well. And this is the only two articles from Cyberscoop today. As vaccine passports morph into digital IDs, privacy advocates want to know that user data is protected. This is a very interesting topic to me because I've been I'm not sure if I have covered this. I think I covered this on my YouTube channel with the password is dead, because with the FIDO Alliance, or with the FIDO protocol, or FIDO, I don't know, however you want to pronounce it, you have the ability to actually build in digital identities into these tiny little authentication security tokens, right? And these security tokens, they don't have to be in a USB, as I showcased in my YouTube video, these USB tokens that I use as well, because they are just so much more secure than purely relying on SMS2FA or even app2FA. You can build them into operating systems, and they are already built into the Android operating system. Android is really pushing, leading the adoption of FIDO protocols. It doesn't just have to be used for signing up for services or logging into websites. It can also be used to authenticate yourself in physical world. Like, for example, you're buying alcohol or whatever that needs age limit authentication. Well, you could have your government ID, whatever that is. It can be your passport, your social security number, your driver's license, whatever. And you don't have to disclose, like you would have to hand over your physical passport, and that will give the retailer everything that's on there, like your birth address even, or, you know, stuff like that. You would just present your phone, and without the vendor getting all of that data about you, they would only verify that, yeah, you are over 18, and that's it. And so this would be a massive security and privacy improvement in the physical world, because when you are carrying this piece of government ID, it's not encrypted. It's right there in plain text, literally, right? So anyone that steals that can abuse it, make a copy of it, you know, do whatever they want. And that's dangerous, you know, obviously, right? So if you have it in your phone hopefully is encrypted. Well, most likely it is. If you're using any modern phone today, Android, iPhone, they are encrypted by default. And if you use a strong passphrase, or your password, lock screen password, has not been compromised, it's going to be impossible for whoever finds your phone to actually get inside and get your ID from there. So much more secure when it comes to physical security. However, it's in your phone, right? So your phone can be compromised remotely with a malware. This FIDO adoption that I've seen in Android is pretty secure, and I'm pretty sure that it's going to be pretty secure in iPhones as well. The thing is that it is embedded in highly secure enclaves on the operating system. These enclaves are not accessible to general apps, and they're most likely going to be implemented in a way where it's going to be almost impossible or just way too costly for remote hackers to compromise these government IDs in digital form on your phone. Now, there is a problem with this that, it's never going to be completely secure. There is always going to be someone who's going to be able to find a way to figure out a zero-day security vulnerability or find a bug and pull out those details. Whether that's going to be the case for en masse attacks or just highly targeted, very expensive attacks, only future can tell. Because previously it has been thought that iPhones are so much more secure than anything else that it takes millions to just target a single iPhone user. But China has proven that's not the case. They've been able to monitor and attack thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of iPhone users through their mass surveillance of the Uyghur Muslims by directly hacking into iPhones. It's not just like passive data collection of iPhone users, just directly hacking into iPhones, taking over their phones remotely and taking their data, even encrypted messages, all of their contacts, files, images, whatever. So, and they were able to do this en masse and for years, unnoticed. So it is possible to compromise these phones, Android and iPhones, on a pretty massive scale for a long period of time. So the article, I'm just going to read it a little bit. Tech companies and global organizations have championed health passes, sometimes known as vaccine passports, as a means to securely reopen businesses and borders as COVID-19 cases drop and vaccination rates rise. So this article is actually starting with the vaccine passports, but it's not just limited. This technology is not just limited to vaccine passports. The technology is meant to serve as a secure way to prove vaccination without someone needing to present a physical vaccine card or other documentation. For instance, instead of checking a customer's vaccine card, a business or airline could simply scan a QR code that provides verification based on uploaded medical records. Awesome, right? The European Union, Israel, Japan, and Singapore have all embraced vaccine passports to an extent to help reopen their borders. Several states, including New York and soon California, have embraced verification technology. A growing number of states, including Arizona, Florida, and Georgia, have banned requiring them. Some opponents of the technology have raised concerns that vaccine passports are an unnecessary replacement for paper and could disadvantage individuals without access to smartphones. Others have accused companies such as IBM and Clear of being scanned on details about how they're protecting user data. Now, data protection experts have a new concern: a greater expansion of the technology to include other forms of digital identities that will outlast the pandemic. So-called digital IDs, a broad term for app-based tools to authenticate user identity through real-time verification, biometrics, or an existing identification from such a license, are emerging as a means of securely verifying users' identities without spilling their personal information. Privacy experts worry, though, that without appropriate protections, the technologies could end up putting user data at greater risk. And this is the risk here. So it is going to significantly increase the physical security of these ID documents. That's true, right? Because it's stored on an encrypted phone. The problem is that once it's inside software, right, on your operating system, and apps can use it in one way or another to either generate QR codes or access the data, like for banking apps, for example, or some trading apps that need some sort of personal data to authorize financial activity. Years into the future, there is going to be some sort of an implementation that requires access to this data. And once these digital IDs are fully embraced and a lot of people have them, there is going to be an incredible pressure from advertisers and health insurers and all these other companies that are interested in all kinds of device and personal identifiers to use these digital IDs for whatever purpose, and they might be introducing some like better plans when it comes to insurance or some sort of perks, or just do this to unlock some certain features, and it will be encouraging people to give up their data in exchange for something. And that's something that has already been happening, but right, we're living in the age of the internet with social media platforms giving you features of connecting with people all around the world in exchange for your data. Like, that precedence is already there, and that data also includes device identifiers, which also includes something like your IP address, your real life location, also like all of the metadata that you have generated with communicating with your friends. So vast amounts of data. So it's all this is something that we are building, something that can be used for good, like improving physical security of digital identification. But the privacy aspect is pretty dangerous, right? And I think that we are headed in this direction where these IDs that will be generated for a lot of new things. So not just vaccine passports, but many different things. And it's going to be a new prerequisite to access services. Like, the vaccine passport is supposed to allow you to travel or enter businesses like restaurants, right? So it's going to be there forever, right? Not just throughout this pandemic, but throughout the next pandemic, throughout next other things that will or will not happen in the future. It doesn't matter what happens in the future. These IDs, once implemented, they're just going to stay there forever. And the tech actually in Android and iPhones is already there. It's already possible to use digital IDs in these phones. The application programming interfaces are already built in, so developers can take advantage of them. And the only thing is that developers haven't built these apps so far. So it's just a matter of time right now. Right, let's move on to another article. This time from Ars Technica. Even creepier COVID tracking, Google silently pushed app to users' phones. Over the weekend, Google and the state of Massachusetts managed to make creepy COVID tracking apps even creepier by automatically installing them on people's Android phones. Numerous reports on Reddit, Hacker News, and in-app reviews claim that Mass Notify, Massachusetts COVID tracking app, silently installed on their Android device without user consent. And Google gave the following statement: "We have been working with the Massachusetts Department of Public Health to allow users to activate the exposure notification system directly from their Android phone settings. This functionality is built into the device settings and is automatically distributed by the Google Play Store. So users don't have to download a separate app. COVID-19 exposure notifications are enabled only if a user proactively turns it on. Users decide whether to enable this functionality and whether to share information through the system to help warn others of possible exposure." So this is a similar story to the digital IDs, but now this is with this COVID-19 tracking application. So I made a video on COVID-19 tracking back when both Apple and Google were developing application programming interfaces for third-party developers to take advantage of Bluetooth scanning and Bluetooth tracking technologies built into the phones already, to build apps that will enable to track people that have been positively tested for COVID-19 and alert everyone that these people have been in contact with. Now, this is an incredibly imperfect piece of technology because it doesn't really make a difference between somebody being 1 meter apart but separated by a thick wall where the virus would never be allowed to travel between these two people. And just meeting somebody on the street randomly, a meter apart, talking outside where the virus would also not likely infect a non-infected person. The problem with this tracking technology, even though it might have good intention, is that it's going to stay there forever. And again, like with the digital IDs, Apple and Google have both built into this like underlying API into their phones, into their platforms, and it's just up to the third-party developers to start taking advantage of them. So most states and countries build their own health notification or COVID-19 notification apps, and it was up to the users to download them and install them. It wouldn't be enabled by default, But the tracking technology that was built by Google and Apple, that was installed remotely into people's phones, right? So how is that possible? Well, it is possible because with Google Play services and the equivalent on the iPhone with the iOS store, they have the ability, Apple and Google, to install apps and updates remotely on your phone. So as soon as you're connected to the internet, as soon as you have like your Google account ID and your Apple ID on your phone, they're able to have this sort of communication. And it might be useful in cases to push security updates and good stuff like that, right? But it also means that they can do whatever they want with your phone, because they can literally remotely install any app they want on your phone. It's basically like a rootkit level of infiltration. It's an ultimate privilege by these centralized companies. So the best way for anyone to actually hack your phone, like government agencies, is just to go to Apple and Google and ask them to do that on their behalf, and they can easily do that. And you have no way of stopping that, and even no way of actually realizing that your device have been infected, because in this case, in this particular case, Google has installed an app on people's phones, but only in Massachusetts. It's not anywhere else, and people have noticed that because they have seen the app, right? But they can do this. Both Apple and Google can install software on your phone in a way that you don't notice. You don't see any app on your home screen, right? And they can do it in a way that you will never be able to remove that app, right? It will be like a persistent malware on your phone, or spyware. Is this all hyperbole? Is this all something that you're just spreading conspiracy theories or something like that? Well, not really, right? We are talking about capabilities. We are not talking about what is happening or what isn't happening. We are talking about the capability, and that capability on its own is a problem, is dangerous, right? So just because they have this capability, we should be criticizing these companies. And that's why I'm using Graphene OS, and I recommend everyone to use Graphene OS, because Graphene OS removes Google from your Android phone. There is no Google API in it. There is no Google Play services. There's no rootkit level access into your phone. With Graphene OS, you have your phone and it's yours, right? Not even Daniel McKay, the Graphene OS developer, lead developer, can remotely attack your phone, because the only thing that is transferred from your phone into the Graphene OS servers is your IP address when it comes to your updates, right? There are no device identifiers, no Google account, Apple ID, or whatever other IDs like advertiser IDs or whatever else. None of that travels or exists actually on your Android device with Graphene OS, which is awesome because it's much more secure. When it comes to your IP address, you can easily obfuscate it with a VPN or Tor, and then you cannot be targeted with an IP address. But when you have like a regular Android and a regular iPhone, this is what's happening, right? And you need to be aware of that. So no matter what people think about COVID-19 or COVID tracking and all of these other like vaccine passports and all that, the fact that we are building this technology, that's something that we need to be aware of, and we need to be able to be skeptical of and criticize. Because if we are not allowed to criticize these companies and these app developers and states trying to install things on our devices, then they can do whatever they want. And if they can do whatever they want, we are not on a good path to protect our digital rights. So the last article today is from Vice, and it's how smart thermostats are turning down air conditioners during heat wave. Automated grid response programs are gaining traction through the US via sweepstakes and incentives. But unknowing users say they are left sweating, right? As the Electric Reliability Council of Texas urged citizens last week to limit their energy use to avoid shortening the grid amid high temperatures and demand spikes, a number of Texans with smart thermostats were dismayed to find that this was being taken care of for them. Brendan English of Deer Park, Texas, for example, returned home from work last week to find his house right at 78 degrees Fahrenheit, the temperature ERCOT recommended to reduce grid strain. But English wasn't the one who said it there. It had been changed by a third party while his wife and child were napping. They woke up sweating, English told local Houston CBS affiliate. Was my daughter at the point of overheating? She's 3 months old. They dehydrate very quickly. So I don't want to reach you about English, who cares, right? This is a systemic problem. So what's going on here is that you have these power grid apps that are giving people thermostats to control their temperature. And in this particular case, it's for AC units, but like in winter, this is obviously for heating your home, right? So when you sign up for these smart devices that control your heating temperature or cooling temperature, oftentimes they give you the option to connect to the internet, right? And for whatever reason, they may give you some sort of a credit giveaway or something, I don't know, whatever, to entice you to do that, right? And once you do that, what you're actually doing is that you're giving that provider, that company, remote control over your cooling or heating device at your home. And that sounds super convenient for a lot of people, right? But for someone like me, and I'm trying to spread this message through this way of thinking to other people, is that if you give up control over your device, it's no longer your device. You're giving up your own property rights. And I'm not saying that property rights are something that is above everything, but you pay for something with your money, right? You pay for your phone, you pay for all of these Internet of Things devices, all of these smart devices in your home, but you don't own them. The company that made them owns them. For one thing, they are proprietary, they are not open source. There are some open source alternatives, but we are not talking about open source smart devices here. And second, they can do whatever they want with your device remotely. This is why Apple is such a big problem, because you're not really buying their products, you are just licensing it from them, because you're not allowed to install whatever app you want. You're not allowed to sideload different apps outside of the iOS App Store. You're not allowed to bypass the iOS what's it called? The developer cut, the developer tax, where they charge 30% to the developers. You are not allowed to do something like jailbreak your phone, because Apple will try to ruin it for you remotely. And when it comes to like physical right to repair, you don't have the right with Apple devices to change some of your device accessories when it comes to like changing your screen or whatever, because Apple could remotely do a software update to make sure that that third party replacement part is no longer working with your device. And that is to entice you to spend more and more money within the Apple ecosystem, so that Apple can charge you more and more as you go about your everyday life. And that's the same thing happening. It's the same sort of business strategy, to have more venues to extract money directly from the people, to lock them down inside this ecosystem, so that every time they make an expenditure, every time they spend money for whatever, you want to cash out. You want to have a commission from that, at least, right? If not all of that money coming directly to you. So what people should know about this is that smart devices are a terrible idea when it comes to like your home, Internet of Things. You should probably not be buying a fridge that is connected to the internet, or microwave or whatever. Just use your phone. Like, your phone is much more secure than any of these devices, and all of these devices are horrible security vulnerabilities that are going to be exploited for the next years, or even a decade, or maybe even longer. And just stay ahead of the rest of the crowd, right? Just don't participate in this, because there is going to be, for sure, there is going to be a massive problem in the future when these devices are going to be exploited in the wild, and there's going to be ripple effects across the nation, and people are going to be suffering because of this overconnectedness to the internet, like connecting everything to companies, to centralized data servers, and collecting all of the data. It is going to be abused on a massive scale, and people are going to notice when it's too late. So for me, at least, I want to avoid that damage, because I think it's unnecessary. So I'm not going to be installing these things into my home, and I'm not going to be using them wherever they are available. So that's it for today. Let me know what you think about this new format, and if you have any comment for whatever story that we covered today, feel free to post it and I will definitely read it. Thank you for your support. Stay safe and stay free. Bye-bye.